I'm Justine, and welcome to the Deep Dive. Imagine you're working 80 hours a week, right?
Oh, easily.
Yeah, and your schedule is booked solid for the next 6 months. You've got 5 crews running simultaneously across different sites. Your trucks are just constantly moving.
Right, from the outside, you look like an absolute powerhouse.
Exactly. But then you're sitting at your desk on a Thursday night, staring at your accounts, and you realize with a cold sweat that you cannot make payroll tomorrow.
That is just, wow, it's terrifying.
It really is. How does that even happen? Like, how can you have more work than you could possibly handle, Nicole, but literally zero profit to show for it?
You know, Justine, that scenario right there is the silent killer of the construction industry. That the assumption is always that volume equals success. I mean, we are taught that the hustle requires accumulation, bid on more jobs, hire more hands, buy more equipment.
More and more.
Exactly. But when you look closely at the actual mechanics of truly sustainable operations, that equation completely falls apart.
Which is really the core paradox we're unpacking today. And we are pulling our insights entirely from Smart Business Automator's Market Intelligence Report.
Right.
We're taking a really close look at construction business profitability, client management, and the systems that separate the struggling operators from the industry titans.
And what that intelligence reveals is, honestly, it's completely counterintuitive.
It really is. I mean, the most profitable contractor in your market probably turns down way more work than you do.
Oh, absolutely. The focus shifts entirely away from just, the mechanics of winning a bid to a much more critical evaluation of whether that bid is even worth winning in the first place.
Right. So by the time we wrap up this deep dive, the goal is to completely re-engineer how you view a rejected client or a so-called lost bid.
Because we want to transform the word no from a perceived failure into your absolute most powerful financial tool.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because before we can talk about finding the right, highly profitable jobs, we have to look at the psychological trap that forces contractors to accept the disastrous ones.
Yes. The yes trap.
Right. Let's explore what the report calls the yes trap. Nicole, how does this start?
Well, the yes trap is born out of pure, unadulterated survival instinct. I mean, think back to the very first year of a new business.
Oh man, it's brutal.
It is. The pipeline is effectively a void, the phone isn't ringing, and the overhead is just ticking away.
Ticking away every single day.
Right. So when a prospective client finally calls, your biological response is to just say yes to whatever they offer.
You agree to an impossible timeline.
Exactly. You accept razor-thin margins, you ignore blatant behavioral red flags purely to get some oxygen into the lungs of the business.
Which, it makes sense in year one. You're just trying to get on the board.
Of course.
But the danger outlined in the material is that saying yes to everything morphs from a temporary survival mechanism into a permanent company culture.
It becomes a deeply ingrained habit.
Yeah. And in a project-based business where your capacity is strictly finite, your crew can only physically be on one site at a time.
Right. You can't clone your guys.
Exactly. So that habit becomes fatal. Every single bad job you accept automatically displaces a highly profitable one.
Let's ground this in the specific mathematical example they highlighted. Imagine you take on a $100,000 project.
Okay.
But to win that bid against 3 competitors, you had to aggressively slash your price.
Oh, right.
So that leaves you with a projected profit margin of a measly 5%.
Yikes.
Right. Now, on paper, a business owner might rationalize that decision by saying, well, $5,000 is still $5,000.
And it keeps my crew employed.
Exactly.
But Nicole, that $5,000 is basically a mirage, isn't it? Because we all know the reality of the punch list.
Oh, the dreaded punch list.
Right. When you are operating on a 5% margin, the work is inevitably rushed. The site environment is stressful, corners might get cut, and your best workers burn out.
They absolutely do.
Fast forward a few months, and you are dealing with callbacks. You're sending a guy across town in a $60,000 choice, sitting in an hour of traffic just to adjust a cabinet hinge.
Or fix a squeaky floorboard for free.
Yes, for free. And every time that truck rolls back onto the site, that 5% margin is actively bleeding out into negative territory.
The financial bleed is severe, but honestly, Justine, the opportunity cost is arguably the most devastating factor here.
How so?
Well, consider the sheer amount of mental bandwidth and physical time the owner spends managing that low-margin, high-stress client.
Oh, yeah.
You're fighting daily battles over undocumented change orders, fielding angry phone calls at 7 o'clock on a Sunday.
And managing their constant anxiety.
Exactly. And the entire time you are trapped in that cycle, you are completely unable to court the clients who would gladly pay a 20% premium for your actual expertise.
You're just trapped in the trenches of your own bad decision. But I want to play devil's advocate here for a second because the psychology of this is incredibly powerful.
Okay, go for it.
Let's put ourselves back in the shoes of that contractor, staring down a Friday payroll with an uncomfortably light bank account.
It's a tough spot.
When the pressure is that immediate, isn't any cash flow, even from a bad job, better than no cash flow? I mean, a flawed contract still puts liquid cash into the account today to pay the guys.
It injects cash today, yes. But the mechanism functions exactly like a predatory payday loan taken out against the future health of the company.
Wow, a payday loan.
Yeah, it provides this fleeting, short-term relief in exchange for guaranteed long-term pain.
Right.
By taking a toxic job just to bridge a payroll gap, you're mathematically ensuring that you'll be in the exact same desperate, cash-poor position 3 months from now.
Because that job won't yield the retained profit necessary to cushion the next slow period.
Precisely.
I look at it this way, Nicole. Taking a bad, low-margin job just to get some cash flowing is kind of like drinking salt water when you're stranded in a life raft dying of thirst.
Oh, that's a great analogy.
Right. Your brain is screaming for hydration, and the salt water is right there over the edge of the boat. When it first hits your throat, it feels like a solution.
It feels like relief.
Yeah, but it doesn't hydrate you. The underlying mechanism of the salt water actively accelerates your dehydration and shuts down your organs.
It kills you much faster than if you had just stayed thirsty.
Exactly. Endured the discomfort and waited for it to rain.
That illustrates the systemic damage perfectly, Justine. The temporary sensation of relief completely masks the fact that the business is dying from the inside out.
So if bad jobs are the salt water that will eventually sink the operation, the vital next step is figuring out how to spot that toxic water before you ever take a sip.
Before the contract is even drafted.
Right. The sources provide a highly specific 5-point client red flag checklist, and we need to examine the mechanics of why these behaviors are so dangerous.
These are the classic warning signs that every seasoned operator learns, usually the hard way.
Let's look at the first one. The prospective client tells you right up front that they're gathering 3 bids, and they guarantee they're going to hire the cheapest option.
Oh, red flag number 1.
The explicit instruction for the material here is simply to walk away. Do not even engage.
Because a client who announces a race to the bottom views your trade as a pure commodity, not a crafted expertise.
Exactly. They don't value the work.
Right. And to take that a step further, the second red flag occurs during the estimate phase.
Oh, the endless changes.
Yes. If the client is constantly changing the scope of work, asking for 4 different tile variations, moving a wall, then moving it back.
Before you've even hammered a single nail.
Exactly, you walk. The psychology there is critical. If they are that chaotic and indecisive during the honeymoon phase, when there is zero pressure,
I imagine the operational nightmare they're going to become when the walls are open.
And unexpected issues arise, and large sums of money are actually on the line.
It is a guaranteed recipe for unapproved change orders and scope creep. Which brings us to the third red flag pushback on your standard deposit or payment term.
This is a huge one.
If they want to hold all the money until the very end of the project, the instruction is to walk. And the underlying why here is pretty fascinating.
It really is, because if a client is fighting you over a standard 20% mobilization deposit, it signals one of 2 things.
Okay, what are they?
Either they do not actually have the cash liquidity to fund the project, meaning you will be fighting for every single progress payment.
Which is a nightmare.
Right? Or they view the contractor-client relationship as an adversarial power struggle where they need to maintain financial leverage over you.
Wow. And neither scenario results in a profitable, smooth project.
Definitely not. Which leads directly into the 4th red flag, bad-mouthing past contractors.
Oh, I've heard this one so many times.
If you sit down at their kitchen table and they spend 20 minutes telling you how the last 3 guys they hired were incompetent thieves who tried to rip them off, you walk.
Because the common denominator in all those failed relationships is the client.
Exactly. You're just auditioning to be the 4th idiot in their ongoing narrative.
You will inevitably join that list. Okay, so the final red flag is the client who wants the project done yesterday.
The rush job.
Right. They're in a massive unexplained rush. Now, the material advises to proceed with extreme caution and charge a premium. But I have a question about this gray area, Nicole.
Sure. What is it?
How do you distinguish between a client who is just a walking nightmare of poor planning and a client who is just a highly motivated buyer with cash in hand? Like maybe they just closed on a house and genuinely need to move in next month.
It's a great question. You have to investigate the root cause of the urgency.
Okay.
If a pipe burst and their living room is under 2 inches of water, that is a genuine structural emergency.
Right.
If you step in and solve that, you create a loyal client for life. But if the urgency exists because they dragged their feet on a kitchen remodel for 6 months, fail to make decisions.
And now they're trying to force their lack of planning to become your operational emergency.
That is the nightmare. And the mechanism to test this, as the source suggests, is urgency premium.
Testing them with a price tag.
Precisely. If they are willing to pay a 25% markup for you to completely rearrange your schedule, pull guys off other sites, and expedite material shipping.
Then they're a serious, motivated buyer who understands the value of time.
Yes. But if they balk at that premium and demand instant, drop everything service for the lowest possible bargain price, well, you have your answer. You walk away.
They want the premium, white glove service without the premium price tag. That is an incredibly effective filter.
It really is.
Now let's look at the bigger picture here. The material connects this entire red flag checklist directly to the Pareto principle, the 80-20 rule.
Right, which applies to almost everything in business.
Yeah. In construction, roughly 20% of your clients are going to generate 80% of your actual retained profit. These are the people who respect your timeline, communicate clearly, and pay their invoices the day they arrive.
And the inverse is a brutal reality. The bottom 80% of your clients generate almost all of your headaches.
They nickel and dime the estimates.
They ignore the payment schedules and micromanage the site foreman. So the true purpose of this red flag checklist goes far beyond just defensive maneuvering.
It's about intentionally engineering your entire marketing, estimating, and sales funnel to act as a highly calibrated filter.
Exactly. You must actively repel that bottom 80% so you preserve the operational bandwidth required to attract and execute for the top 20.
Okay, so let's say a business owner takes this to heart. They implement the strict checklist. They start filtering out the tire kickers and the red flag clients.
Right.
Inevitably, they're going to look up at their scheduling whiteboard and see empty spaces.
Yes, they are.
The calendar isn't packed to the gills anymore. For a contractor conditioned to hustle, looking at a blank week when the overhead bills are still due induces sheer panic.
It is a deeply uncomfortable psychological space to inhabit,
Right.
which is exactly why the material introduces the 3 pillars of patience.
Saying a strategic no to bad work is impossible unless you cultivate the patience to wait for the highly profitable yes.
That's exactly.
Let's break those pillars down. The first is pricing patience. A desperate operator slashes their bid just to win the job and fill the calendar.
Right.
But a disciplined operator bids a fair price, aggressively protects their profit margin, and simply waits.
And we can look at Smart Business Automator's market intelligence report here because it provides incredibly clear intelligence on this behavior.
What does it show?
The firms that maintain their pricing discipline through a market slowdown, the ones who refuse to engage in a race to the bottom, they don't just survive the lean times.
They thrive.
They actually recover exponentially faster when the market rebounds, and they achieve significantly larger long-term growth than the competitors who slash their prices to stay busy.
But what's the mechanical reason behind that faster recovery? Like, why does holding the line on your pricing make you grow faster later?
Because think about it, Justine. If you panic and slash your prices in February, you fill your entire spring pipeline with low-margin, high-stress grinding work.
Right.
So when the market recovers in May and the fantastic high-paying jobs start rolling in, your crew is completely tied up building a complex addition for zero profit.
You literally have zero capacity for the good jobs.
Exactly. The disciplined contractor who waited out the dip has their entire crew rested and ready to immediately capture the high-margin work the second it hits the market.
Wow. That shifts the entire perspective on downtime.
It really does.
So the second pillar is seasonal patience. Construction is an inherently cyclical beast. Winter freezes the ground, or the rainy season stalls exterior work.
It's unavoidable.
Right. Surviving these natural downturns means exercising the discipline to save a 3 to 6 month cash reserve during the summer boom times, rather than instantly inflating your lifestyle or your business overhead just because the bank account temporarily looks flush.
Cash reserves act as the ultimate operational shock absorber. They are the actual mechanism that allows you to practice the pricing patience we just discussed.
Because you aren't desperate.
Right. If you have 6 months of operating expenses safely sitting in the bank, you don't sweat a slow February. You utilize that downtime to train your project managers and maintain your heavy equipment.
But the temptation to spend during a boom is huge. I view it like this, Nicole. Going out and buying a fleet of brand new custom-wrapped trucks during a 3-month summer boom.
Yeah.
It's like permanently upgrading to a massive $1 million mortgage just because you won a few lucky hands at the blackjack table.
That is painfully accurate.
You're treating a temporary cyclical windfall as a permanent new reality. You're locking yourself into permanent overhead based on a temporary condition. When the luck fades or the winter hits, that massive overhead is going to crush you.
The structural bloat becomes lethal the moment the revenue dips.
Yeah.
And that leads to the third pillar, expertise patience. This revolves around staying firmly within your core competency.
Like the example of the residential remodeler.
Exactly. They get offered a massive $500,000 commercial steel frame warehouse project. Saying yes simply because the dollar amount is huge is a catastrophic trap.
Because you don't actually know how to execute it efficiently.
Right. When you step wildly outside your core expertise on a large scale, you're essentially learning how to execute a completely new trade on someone else's dime, but with all the legal and financial liability resting entirely on your own shoulders.
You're going to miscalculate the material estimate.
You'll sequence the subtrades out of order, and you'll learn incredibly expensive lessons that wipe out the profit. Strategic patience means staying in your lane and only expanding your offerings when you have intentionally built the infrastructure and capability to back it up.
So, Nicole, we're talking a lot about individual discipline here. The owner holding the line on pricing, saving cash, staying in their lane.
Right.
But as a company scales from 1 crew to 5 crews, individual discipline from the founder is no longer enough. The owner can't be on every single job site acting as the bottleneck for every decision.
No, that's impossible.
The ability to enforce this patience and say no has to exist outside of the owner's head.
Yeah.
It has to be built into the very infrastructure of the company.
And this brings us to the deeply unsexy, often ignored reality of scaling a business, systems, and standard operating procedures.
Yeah.
A contractor who pauses to spend 6 months actively building proper infrastructure, writing the manuals, documenting the processes, and formally training their teams will drastically outperform the contractor who spends those same 6 months desperately chasing every single dollar of revenue.
Because systems create leverage. And a massive part of that systemization is pushing the power of the word no down the chain of command.
That is so critical.
You have to empower your project managers and your site foremen to protect the margins right there in the dirt.
Yes.
When a homeowner walks onto this site on a Wednesday morning and casually asks the PM to just add a few extra recessed lights while the ceiling is open, the PM needs the explicit training and the structural authority to say, no, we cannot do that without an approved signed change order.
They need to reject scope creep, refuse unsafe subcontractor conditions, and block unreasonable timeline demands immediately.
If the PM does not have the tools or the authority to say no in that micro moment, that small scope creep inevitably rolls uphill, multiplies, and becomes a massive margin-killing emergency that the owner has to deal with on a Friday afternoon.
Exactly. And to empower those PMs, they need visibility. Let's look at Smart Business Automator's Market Intelligence Report again.
What does it tell us about visibility?
It shows a massive shift toward relying on AI and automation to provide the real-time visibility necessary to make confident decisions on the ground.
Let's break that down for the listener. What does something like document intelligence or automated schedule risk detection actually look like when you're standing on a job site wearing a hard hat? How does it actually work?
Think about a massive commercial build. Instead of a project manager spending their entire weekend exhausted, manually reading through a 400-page PDF specification manual to find out what specific grade of fire-rated drywall is required for a single corridor.
That sounds awful.
It is. But the AI document intelligence scans the file instantly. It highlights that one specific crucial sentence the second the file is uploaded.
Wow.
It completely removes human fatigue from the equation, preventing the PM from accidentally approving and installing the wrong material, which would lead to a catastrophic tear-out later.
That makes total sense. And the schedule risk detection.
It analyzes the daily logs and subtrade activity to spot domino effects. If the system sees that the electrical subcontractor is running 2 days behind on their rough-in, the AI understands that this delay will subsequently push the drywallers, which will then bottleneck the painters.
Oh, I see.
It flags that risk 3 weeks before the drywall guys actually show up to an unwired house. It gives the leadership the real-time intelligence they need to say no to a flawed schedule and adjust before the chaos hits.
I completely understand the value of the tech and the systems, but Nicole, I have to push back on the psychological hurdle of implementing this.
Okay, let's hear it. Telling a contractor, someone whose entire identity and cash flow is built on forward momentum, to effectively pause the revenue chase for 6 months, to write manuals and implement AI.
It's hard.
It feels like telling a runner in the middle of a marathon to stop, sit down on the pavement, and carefully double knot their shoes. It's terrifying because you feel like your competitors are just going to blow right past you while you are sitting there. How does an owner justify that pause?
It feels terrifying, yes, but the marathon analogy is exactly why it is necessary.
Yeah.
If you're running a 26-mile race with untied shoes, you might keep pace for the first mile or two through sheer adrenaline.
Right.
But eventually, inevitably, you are going to trip, break your ankle, and be carried off the course entirely. Taking a strategic pause to build systems to integrate the right tech, to train your PMs to fiercely guard your margins is the only way you ensure you can actually finish the race.
But you aren't really losing time.
No, you are investing in future velocity. Once the infrastructure is solid, you'll run twice as fast with a fraction of the effort. Investing in future velocity. That is brilliant. So when we zoom out and look at everything we've covered, the psychology of the S-trap, spotting the red flags, enforcing the pillars of patience, and finally systemizing the ability to say no, how do we synthesize this into a single mindset?
It culminates in what we can call the discipline paradox. It feels profoundly counterintuitive to look at a paying client and turn them down. It feels like rejecting oxygen.
It really goes.
But the reality, validated by the smartest operators in the industry, is that activity does not equal achievement. Being busy is not the same as being profitable. The discipline to walk away from bad revenue is the ultimate competitive advantage.
And it leaves you with this incredible final thought. In construction, we tend to measure a contractor's legacy by the physical things they leave behind. You drive through a city and point out the window saying, I built that commercial complex, I remodeled that entire block.
Right, the physical portfolio.
But what if your true legacy and the actual foundation of your financial freedom isn't built on the structures you finished? What if it's built on your shadow portfolio?
The shadow portfolio. I love that.
Yeah, the shadow portfolio of disasters you successfully avoided, the nightmare clients you walked away from before they could destroy your crew's morale.
The massively out-of-scope projects you rejected before they could bankrupt you.
Exactly. The low-margin, chaotic bids you intentionally let your competitors win, ensuring they were tied up in the mud while your crew was free to capture the high-margin, pristine work. Those invisible projects, the ones you had the discipline not to build, are the unseen, unbreakable foundation of your success.
The invisible foundation of discipline, there really is nothing more powerful.
If you know a contractor who is dealing with nightmare clients right now, or who is working endless 80-hour weeks but struggling to protect their profit margins, send them this episode. It could literally save their business and their sanity. Hit follow on whatever app you're listening on so you don't miss tomorrow's intel. And finally, to dive deeper into the tools and the intelligence we discussed today, be sure to visit smartbusinessautomator.com. We will catch you on the next deep dive.